And then in Judea and Samaria, which they like to call the West Bank, they say, oh, it's the same thing there. Okay, you're all the roads there are built by Israel. Okay, every modern amenity there, you cannot go into the Arab cities. You are not allowed into, we're Saifeddin's from one of those cities. I was, it's Nablus. He's from Nablus. And it's Shechem. It's called Shechem. The proper name is Shechem. But in Nablus, yeah, I could. There's a big orange sign that says, if you are Israeli, you cannot enter. In Hebrew, you will be killed. They will mob lynch you, okay? And some Germans, I actually went in there once, they almost got lynched. Just German tourists somehow. I don't know how they got beyond.
Are one of the opposition parties going to be the next leaders of El Salvador? And if so, then do we find out why the National Security Advisor, Alejandro, was murdered in custody? The real Bitcoiner, by the way, that all the Bitcoiners have now abandoned and forgotten. He's the one who wanted to jail the gangs. He's the one who wanted to make Bitcoin the legal tender. There seems to be no loyalty amongst anybody, yet the UN is asking questions and being ignored by the Salvadorian government. So has he now trapped himself that he needs to become a dictator? Because if not, then a follow-up leadership or administration may start asking questions finally. Just asking questions. Who killed your national security advisor?
Well, see, this is an interesting point you bring up. Yes.
Let's start with your background. So for everybody who's now watching this and wondering, who is this guy, Adam Meister, the Disruptor Meister? Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, lots of people heard this before in the Bitcoin space, but a lot of you are not in the Bitcoin space. You need an introduction, so I'm going to speak really fast here. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. Originally, I discovered Bitcoin in around 2011 from the alternative finance channels out there, people that were in the same loop as Doug Casey. I had recently discovered, anarchism, and which is a little extreme. What do they call it now?
Narco-capitalism?
And narco-capitalism. There were some shady dudes in it, but it led me down a path, and I was like, hey, private money. I love technology. I'm entrepreneurial, and I kept hearing about it. And then at the beginning of 2013, it pumped some. I thought I had missed out. And then Coinbase came along in 2013. I got my first two in November of 2013. And I started making videos in December of 2013 on the Bitcoin Meister channel. I called myself the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister, because I wanted to disrupt. And I was still making videos about Baltimore then, because I'd been in Baltimore activism, where I learned about the bureaucracy of insane Baltimore. And 2014 from there, I made my famous prediction, which is it's on my pinned tweet on Twitter, saying, get 22 Bitcoin now for $10,000. It might be worth 100 one day. And of course, now that's worth $2 million now. And I never sold any of my Bitcoin. So I've got a big smile on my face all the time. I traveled all around the world. I've been basically in Salt Lake City for the last few years because I think it's the best city in the United States of America. Since I have a lot of free time because I have a lot of Bitcoin, and I, learn, I've become interested in philosophy and, just creating I call it a confident decentralist way of life. And I have, I don't believe in scapegoating. And just I've had a lot of time to think and study how few people do think. Back in 2016, I said just ignore this Clinton and Trump stuff. You could go back to, again, type in disruptmeister.com. It'll take you to my YouTube page, Adam Meister. I've made over 2,000 videos in my day. I was big back in the old days before there were even altcoin channels. There were only Bitcoin channels. I'm an OG. People know me. If you know me, you should be rich. If you've known me since 2013 or 16, you should be a millionaire now. There is no excuse. All I said was buy and hold. I never got creative or all these people trying to trade and do all this nonsense. All I said was buy and hold. And if you just bought and hold, I got the first Bitcoin I bought, they combined a little bit over $1,200. It was like 650 and 650. And I bought a lot at 300, 400, 500, 200, most around 700. Not 90% of my Bitcoin more than 90%. I probably paid less than 800 per Bitcoin. Yeah.
So for context, for people who don't know, we'll get into this in a few minutes. The price of Bitcoin you averaged in at was about $800 or $700.
No, like 700. I say 800. Let's say 800.
Yeah, let's say
it doesn't matter. It's 100,000 now. If I would have averaged it at 2,000, it would have made a difference.
That's right, and that is difficult for people to conceptualize, even when they see the raw numbers. And I think it's because we've never had an asset like this in all of human history, and this is why Bitcoin is so significant, and it's difficult for people to process the implications of moving from an analog monetary system to a digital monetary system that no one controls, which is exactly what we're doing. And for people, who follow me, I don't think they fully comprehend your effect on people's lives. I was on the phone with Pubby earlier today, and, he was rehashing with me or remembering that you had a podcast or a YouTube channel where you talked about Bitcoin every day of the year, minus two.
Yeah,
there's a couple of days you weren't there.
Yeah, the Jewish holidays, the second day of Rosh Hashanah, I couldn't do it, and the second day of Passover. There's the only ones. Only days I would skip, because the way the Jewish holidays are, the first day of Rosh Hashanah, you can, the first night of Rosh Hashanah, you could do it in the morning. First night of Passover, you can do it in the morning. It was so the second nights of both those holidays, I couldn't do it. So there's only 2 days I would take off. The only 2 days were those 2 days. So I'm not that religious. There are other holidays that I did not, at the time, I did not follow as some circumstances happened in my life that I did start to follow some things a little bit stricter a little later. But that's a completely different story. And you should try to separate your religion from your financial philosophy. You should totally separate your religion and your financial philosophy. A little bit of a complex thing to say that people will not fully understand, and I think some people will argue with, is have your religion be beyond metaphysics. And I know that's very hard. People will argue that's impossible. How can religions be beyond metaphysics? My metaphysics is real. What you see is out there. Use logic and reason. So people can say, well, how do you still do these Jewish things? I'm like, that's beyond metaphysics. So we're not going to get into these philosophical deep arguments, okay? That most people, I really wish that schools taught philosophy, that private schools still, because public school, you can't teach it. You need a over 110 IQ probably to under, or maybe just over 100. I don't know what you need. You need to be on one side. You don't need to be like a genius, but to just study it. It's just a waste of certain people. If you're under 100 IQ, it's a waste of people's time to study philosophy. There's no point. There's no shame in that at all. But I'm sure the elite private school that I went to in Baltimore back in its day, they probably had philosophy classes. I wish they did when I was there. But that's like unheard of now, because they have to teach insane things that you don't even And again, it would be half the stuff. It would be great if they still taught shop at these schools too, better than half the stuff they taught. So on one end, they should have philosophy and shop, but they do not. They don't have that anymore. But anyway, you can jump in there's all sorts of, if you are smart, if you are interested, learn philosophy. Because I was also immature. So even in college, like I never wanted to, I heard about this philosophy thing. It's hard. No, I'm not going to do that because I just want to have fun and everything like that. But as I got older, I think for some people that are immature, like I was, if you're smart enough, you should look into philosophy, just get some basics of the philosophers and how the French and the Germans differ a lot from the British. And the Germans are very authoritarian, and what that leads to in their culture, and what's it lead to in the French culture when there's nothing is real, But the British culture, their philosophy is very like what's real is real. They became capitalists. So okay,
it's funny you mention all of this. My business that I had sold maybe 6 years ago now. It was on the university campus. And there was one of the professors that would come into my business on a regular basis. He was a professor of philosophy, very nice guy, a little bit, you'd say quite lefty, but very reasonable, free speech guy. And we would just always, he would have 20 minutes waiting in the store. And for whatever reason, we just, really got along, had good chemistry, talking to each other, despite having, differing worldviews. And I remember him saying to me, I asked him one time, why is philosophy so important in your opinion? And he said, it's very simple. Philosophy teaches you how to think.
Yes.
It teaches you how to understand people you disagree with and understand their arguments. And, later, many years later, right now, actually, one of my partners is a very well-known philosophy professor by the name of Stephen Hicks.
Yes.
He famously wrote the book Explaining Postmodernism, Nietzsche and the Nazis, and a number of other publications. And I have to tell you, just the experience of working with Stephen for many, many years, it really helped hone in my skills of understanding arguments from all perspectives. Because if you don't understand the argument from your opposition, you're going to get lost and you're not going to understand the world around you, which is what I think a large part of what's going on right now. What do you think?
Oh my God. Well, first of all, everyone should watch. Hicks has all these great videos out there about all the philosophers. He explains them. He leans toward Ayn Rand. So I like him a lot. Ayn Rand's the best, man. She's for most things, she's the greatest on capitalism. And it's definitely it's a way to exercise your brain, to make you strong, your head's strong. And it teaches you to think clearly and really tear things apart. And the more you get into it, the more you see how you cannot get emotional. And yet people are going to say, you're crazy, you're always yelling and screaming. But I think things out, though. I didn't get emotional with the Bitcoin. Like, I knew just don't be impulsive. It makes people who are impulsive, maybe it'll teach you to be less impulsive or not impulsive at all. If you really are into, study philosophy, learns philosophy, you'll be like, no, I got to think. I cannot just do these spur of the moment, live for the day type of things, like flip this Bitcoin and think it's going to be worth more. And, there's consequences. And philosophy is, it calms you down a little bit. And it also puts your own intelligence into perspective, because when you listen to these guys that really know what they're talking about, and some of them you might really disagree with too. And if you're objective about it, you're like, these dudes are smart. I'm not. If you think you're super duper smart, and then you hear these dudes speak, and I also encourage people to do the same thing with physicists. You'll know you're like, no, I'm not top tier. These dudes are top tier. I got to be humble about who I am. There's no shame in that. There's so many people try to brag that they're the smartest, they're the greatest. They try to show off that they're so high IQ and everything. There's always someone smarter than you, and there's so few people out there that are these just super duper duper G. But you should be able to, with the study of philosophy, you should be able to see these guys are truly smart. And to be a philosophy major at a real school, or to be a physics major at a real school, you've got to be so genius level that's beyond me or you. I mean, it's humbling, but it's great. It's great to have that perspective. You can't go around, unless you are super duper smart, and there's so few people. You can't go around thinking like, I'm better. My brain is just so much. I'm just so beyond. I'm just so elite, upper level. There's no shame in being in the top 20%. There's no shame in being in the top 10%. Okay, you can get so freaking rich just by being top 20, 10% or whatever.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because we see that. We'll close off the Bitcoin space in a minute, but you do see combating philosophies on money. People seem to understand that, the philosophy of a fiat world versus a hard money world. And it's interesting that the Bitcoiners, they really understand the two different schools of thought of hard money, digitized, decentralized money versus fiat. And let's say the average, the normie people, or even people that are politically engaged, they will understand both multiple arguments about geopolitics, but then they're completely lost when it comes to hard digital money versus fiat money. It's interesting. Everybody's got blinders, right?
No, but I think it goes beyond the philosophy. They understand those aspects of life, but they still they're stuck in the victim oppressor narrative. They're stuck in that. So they feel that the Bitcoin people have been victims and we're getting back at the bankers. And then they see some third world horrible place filled with terrorists getting their just desserts. And well, America's bombing Yemen. We are successful. They're weak. Why are we doing this? We're evil. We're the rich are clearly the cause of all the problems. And so just like the banksters, the people they call the banksters are the cause of. So it's the oppressor. So in fact, there are some minor things they're correct on, but their overall philosophy is incorrect. And that is what haunts our society today. This altruism, that is what Rand hit the nail on the freaking head, that we should sacrifice for other people, that you shouldn't be proud of your success. You shouldn't aim for success anymore. And the tech right is great. That's the great group that's influencing Trump right now. Andreessen is proud of being successful. He was tired of well, why do I have to shut down this business and follow this regulation and just because and pay these taxes to these people? No, you should be proud. I am proud as anything that I became a millionaire because of this. And you mentioned that that people like Pubby, they not him specifically. I don't know. I hope this happened to him. But there are people who have followed me all this time. It is quite flattering and an honor when they say you made me a millionaire just by saying I've got videos that say buy 10 Bitcoin, buy 16 Bitcoin, buy 21. That weird one again that said buy 10,000 in September. It was September 16th of 2014. I said, buy $10,000 worth of Bitcoin. That was like 23.4 at the time. Whatever. People, and by the way, now, unfortunately, because of money printing, it's better to be a 2 millionaire than a 1 millionaire. It's like, having $2 million is like having $1 million from 2008, let's say. I got $1 million in 2008. Oh, that's pretty cool. And now it's kind of like having 2 million. I mean, whatever. But anyway, the whole altruism thing, we need to look at this. We need to be proud and say, no, I'm strong. I am right. Just because you are weak does not mean you're right. Just because you're weak does not mean you're moral. Some of these weak people are the most horrible, animalistic, amoral creatures that God ever created. So, yeah, just because they're weak and poor doesn't mean they are right or good. A lot of the times, they are evil, sickening, horrible people. And there's say the truth. Life is life. Poor people can be evil, horrible, envious, scapegoating people and just want to tear other people down. And it seems like in this world of envy and scapegoating, that even people that have become somewhat successful want to tear other people down. They can't be confident decentralists. All these people, they've done pretty well with Bitcoin. Obviously, they think they should have done better. Maybe they're lying about how much they had. They see the people from Ethereum did well, and they're like, no, why does Ethereum exist? It's a scam. It's a scam. It's a scam. It must be destroyed. Why are you wasting your time trying to destroy Ethereum when you become a millionaire from Bitcoin? There's no point. Ethereum doing well does not hurt you. It does not hurt you. Okay, if you paid $700 per Bitcoin back in the day, and Ethereum is worth $2,000 now, you're doing darn well. What's the problem? Why are you envious? Why can't they do well too? This is not a zero-sum game. That's part of my philosophy also. Life is not a zero-sum game. Win-win. Trade is win-win. These people just don't get it. They're like, well, there has to be a winner. Bitcoin must be the winner. There must be no others than Bitcoin. I call it the Bitcoin Inquisition. And funny, some of these same people in the Bitcoin Inquisition are the ones in geopolitics who say, no, Yemen is good. Yemen is good. They have every right. Why is Israel bombing them? Why is the United States bombing them? They're just shutting down commercial, real boats. That's what harm does that do? This is Europe's problem. Europe's problem. No, it's all our problem, JD. When the prices of stuff goes up, you freaking lover of tariffs, pound that like button. The tariff thing is a tax. JD Vance is the bad side of things. Unfortunately, he could be the good side. He is smarter. He's smarter than me, and he could be on the good side. I mean, he has a higher IQ than I do because he went to real law. He got into law school for real. He's smart enough to know this is nonsense. I think he's power hungry. He wants to be. He knows that now amongst the populace, populism is envy. All it is envy. You get the crowd going crazy to hate the elites. Hate the elites. He's elite. Everyone's elite in their own ways. Okay, everyone's special. Everyone's done something cool or whatever. But when you really start fixating on this elite, you're fixating on envy. People look at other people, even though their lives have gotten so much better since 1993, before there was the freaking internet. Okay, really, but that was basically before anyone had access to the internet, other than even people at college didn't have access before 1994, 95, 93, whatever. Compare the world of 1990. Let's compare it to just 30 years ago, 1995. So much better now. So all these poor people, people who are in the lower class, middle class, whatever, they say the middle class got hollowed out. BS! They became rich. And the poor people, it kind of sucked to be poor back then, I guess. Now,
well, hold on. Okay,
cell phone, you got so much darn stuff. And he is out there saying, you guys should be angry. All you guys should be angry. You can't work hardcore jobs anymore. They're all in China. Why do they want to work hardcore jobs anymore? Why can't it's so nice not to have to work hardcore jobs? Only people I see working hardcore jobs are the dudes that came in from Mexico and wherever. Oh my God. Dude. Okay, you're still here. Good.
I'm not.
I was so anyway, the populism is he is being.
Well, hold on. I want to ask you something before you get to that, because you touched on something a little bit earlier that I think is important. And this kind of relates to Stephen's work, and we're seeing this prevalence of this very bad philosophy everywhere of the oppressor versus the oppressed. It's everyone versus the elites. That is neo-Marxism. You know, the 1% versus 99. That's neo-Marxism. That,
and take their proper abolition of private property. That's the goal. Take the 1%'s private property. And even Trump is proposing an increase on taxes on millionaires or something like that. I'm reading. It plays into this. No, there's no right. Just because they're rich doesn't mean you confiscate their property. They haven't oppressed you. You don't need to. They don't owe you a darn thing. Pound that like button. All right, sorry. Continue.
You're great, man. No, so in terms of this, I think this is really, really vitally important, and not enough people in modern society understand that this is the cancer that is spreading. You know, what's very interesting, I want to know your thoughts, is the ascendance of Javier Milei in Argentina. I'll tell you a story about that in a minute after you explain this, your thoughts. But it's very interesting to see that Javier Milei, who really embodies a lot of the Rand objectivist, libertarian philosophy of individualism, which I think is the antidote to the collectivist world we live in right now, where everybody's got to be part of a group and you're being pulled into one. And then it's also interesting to see, some of the pivots of people who loved Javier Milei, and then all of a sudden they changed and they started attacking.
Well, there's one reason that comes up. There's one reason I can tie in to why. Okay, because blaming the 1%, blaming the elite for everything, blaming the oppressors always ends. It always ends with blaming the Jews. Always. It will get there eventually. Banksters become Jews. The neoconservatives, Jews. It all goes back to Jews for them. Okay, and so Javier Milei, he likes the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He's not Jewish, but for some reason he likes the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and that became a tell for the so-called tell for these insane people. Oh wait, he likes this Jew. I've seen these people come out with these conspiracy theories about the Lubavitcher Rebbe, what he has to do with the state of the world today. Complete nonsense. The man's been dead since 1994. But it's just the lengths these people will go. But the other thing is that a lot of people probably now see that that he likes Israel. He likes free nations, he likes free nations. What's his face in Argentina? So he's against Russia. So that there's some things right there why they would. But yet these people also, by now there are some people watching this. They're like, oh my God, this guy is anti-Trump. This much. No, you do not have to agree with every single thing that Trump. That's the problem with this cult mentality, this non-individualistic mentality. They must be part of some group. Okay, so if you do not, this is such a wrong. Trump is better than Biden, obviously. But you should be able to criticize him. Ben Shapiro does a great job of this. He's like, dude, stick with the program, Trump. Why have you gotten off on this this nonsense stuff? Why are you leaning toward the woke right? Stick with the tech right. There's no shit. There's two different things pulling on Trump right now. And I'm going to say it loud and proud. Dude, Trump, listen to the tech right. Ignore Tucker. Ignore Vance. There's a few others. I don't even want to say their disgusting names. Colby Eldridge or whatever. That's getting into the weeds there. People should know. I know.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Anyway, I criticize Trump, but I darn know well that had Biden won, oh my God. I mean, not Biden, Kamala, same thing. That Elon Musk might be in jail. I mean, these are really extreme measures that they were talking here, okay? And that Trump, again, it's like he goes too far sometimes.
Hold on.
He ruined Canada's election, or he helped. That didn't help. Wow. There's a logical way to the Canada thing. I went to Alberta in I loved Calgary and Edmonton and Red Deer. Is it called Red Deer? In Alberta in 2018. Okay, I loved it there. Right away, because I had a brain. I'm like, these people are different than the ones in Vancouver and Quebec and Ontario. This could be the 51st state, because back then they were talking about how when the Democrats come to power, they're going to make Puerto Rico and DC the 51st and 52nd state. I'm like, wait a second. Well, logically, we should contact these Alberta people, see if they want to join. There's a way in the Canadian Constitution that lets them secede naturally. They don't need a war, and they're working on that right now. But what Trump does is like all Canada should be the 51st state, dude.
Okay, well, hold on.
One province is better than all the rest. Get on that. Sorry.
Let's rewind a little bit. You touched on the conspiracy theories. And we also touched on, group identity.
Yes.
And, defining an individual's characteristics by a group identity. That is neo-Marxism. That is postmodernism. So why is it that you think when you see some of the back and forth online amongst even Bitcoiners sometimes who claim to be individualistic and about freedom, yet they attribute, just like the communists do, they attribute individual values to people based on a group identity that often is a straw man. What do you think?
Because both sides of the spectrum, even the less radical, even just the regular right, is into class warfare. Everyone believes in class. Like, there are some great... you know how the conservatives always love to put up a black guy who says he's against affirmative action. Mm-hmm. Most of those black guys are still like, well, it'll be all right if we just discriminated by class. That you just let poor people in to colleges who have no. That's perfectly accepted on both sides. That class warfare is evil. It's just as bad as anti-Semitism. It's just as bad as racism. Is classism. It is just as bad because it is a group. It's widely accepted in this world that you cannot judge people individualistically, purely individually. You have to judge people how they act. Seriously, judge them by the culture they're engaged in. How about that? The culture they have adopted, and don't just be. That there are some people that are of a religion but are totally secular. Okay, they're of the secular culture. They do not let the religion dictate what they do, how they live their life. They do not, in Israel, they do not live by Torah law. They do not live by Torah law. If they lived by Torah law, there would be no homosexuality. There would be no parades, the gay parades and all that stuff, okay? Judge them how they actually act. You say, oh, he's a Jew. He follows the Torah. He follows the Talmud that no Jew has ever even read, except for the ones who study all day. I mean, and there are some good Jews who study a lot too. I mean, the Talmud is just way blown out of proportion. It's insane. I would love them to see the Talmud. When I go to shul, I see the Talmud. It's books and books and books. 50 volumes. It's unbelievable. People think it's one book or something like that. I mean, it's a bunch of dudes for generations writing down what they thought about different subjects. And so, yeah, there's in books and books and books, there are going to be some things you're like, why are they even getting into this? They talk about farting. They talk about farting and stuff even. Little stories, anecdotes. But
the Talmudic deflection, that is to deflect from the hadiths and like the Bukhari hadiths amongst the Islamists. So they're trying to deflect away from all that really hard toxic stuff that the Islamists use and apply that to the Jews, and they're just using people in the West.
Okay. And this is the thing, though. If a Jew believes, because the Talmud, there are mentions of a man named Jesus. There is it might be talking about 2 men or 3 men or 1 man. They don't like this. They don't like this Jesus guy. They say bad things about him. They don't like him. They say he's a false Messiah. He's not. He's bad. He was a reform rabbi. His mother was a bad person, it might say. Okay, so someone wrote that down thousands of years, 1,500 years ago, that Jesus was a bad dude. They didn't like Jesus. They were living under Christian. They were being oppressed by Christians at the time. Okay, so you're going to say things when you're the whole structure around you that's not letting you have your full freedom is arranged around a religion you think is false. You're going to say it's false. And that's people got to get this through their thick heads. Christianity is a fork of Judaism, okay? So you don't like Bcash, okay? Bcash is a fork of Bitcoin. We Bitcoiners are like, no, it's not the real Bitcoin, okay? Bitcoin's the real Bitcoin. Let the Bcashers do what they're going to do. In Judaism, we're like, no, Christianity is not the real religion. We are. Let them do what they're going to do, okay? So, but the thing is, if you believe bad things about Jesus, that Jesus is the Messiah, individual Jewish people are not acting on that in mass, okay? The stuff that's in the Hadith that a lot of Muslims do not believe in, I'm sure, and have never read, there are a lot of people who are acting on it. That stuff, the terrorists give legitimate reasons that they draw from the Hadith and from the Quran that say, it's all right to do this to the infidel. And thus they are justified. Thus their culture, they are living by these rules. As individuals, they're like, well, I've got to follow these rules. They are individually acting animalistically based on a culture that should not be ingrained in the way you live your life. That stuff that's in the Hadith that is radical and that encourages violence. Again, so if it's apples and oranges, they might say bad things about, like, okay, in the Hadith it says there's a Jew hiding behind a tree. Okay, if you believe there's a Jew hiding behind the tree and you don't act on it and you don't use it as a justification for anything, well, I guess that's fine. You don't like Jews because you think you're the real religion. There's really nothing wrong with that. Yeah. But it's when you start as an individual incorporating it into the way you act, into your main goals in life. This is very sickening, okay? And it happens a lot. The people who grew up in the Muslim culture tend to, much more so than other cultures currently, clearly tend toward terrorism, clearly toward envy, clearly are backward. If you just live that lifestyle, look at these countries. If you, as all the individuals in these lifestyles, submit themselves to this culture and do not try to be successful, try to complain all day, try to war, try to spread their religion, it's not a very successful way of living, okay? Compare that to capitalism or secularism, okay? Israel is not based around Talmudic law, around Torah law. It's based around liberal democracy, okay? The way we live in the modern world, how all these be successful, get government out of our lives. And in Israel, government is too much in the people's life. It's not perfect. It's not, but there are socialistic aspects to it, though. But then what people twist around is like, you could say Muslims are bad, but you can't say Jews are bad. No, forget they're Jews there. Forget it's a bunch of Jews. Just look at their success, the way they live, just the secularism of it, that gay people aren't stoned, and compare that to what goes on in Iran, okay, that's ruled by a religious, countries that are ruled by these religious dictates, really coming down from one person, from a Gnostic leader who knows the real truth. They're not very successful. And so just...
Well, and in contrast, what's very important, and people, their mind gets blown when you explain this to them. In the case of Israel, 70% of Israelis identify as secular.
Yes.
And that just never
visit it and see in 2 seconds. It doesn't take a genius.
Of course, but you'd have to go there, right? But as we learned from...
And they could go there. Can they
No,
go
no, we learned from Dave Smith. You don't have to go there. You can...
but they can. The thing is, can you go to Yemen? Is it easy to get into Yemen?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, come on now. What would happen to you if you went to some of these countries as a woman dressed a certain way? It's funny, when you get off the train in Tel Aviv, what's the first thing you see when you're walking on the street? You see African wig shops. It looks like freaking Baltimore, okay? There are illegal aliens from Sudan there and Eritrea there that they just let, whatever. They're not being kicked out or anything, like all this apartheid nonsense. They're letting people who are not Jewish at all, who just somehow made it to the Egyptian-Israeli border. They somehow made it there. It's unbelievable. They got from Sudan to all the way through Egypt, magically through Egypt, and got in. So someone smuggled them in. It's like some other nation state called Egypt, like helped them get in. Anyway, Israel keeps, now there's a lot of Israelis that want them out. Okay, that's understand. That's for some reason there's some crime that's committed too. But my Lord, they got wig. Literally, you will see wig. You're like, this is like Baltimore. If you've been from Baltimore and everything like it looks like. Why is there an African wig shop? And it's not for Ethiopians. It is for the Sudanese and the Eritreans. Okay, the Ethiopian hair is a little bit different anyway. If you want to get into this specific, but you see it right away. You have people, all sorts of people are there on business, and it's just. They never show this stuff. They never. And then in Judea and Samaria, which they like to call the West Bank, they say, "Oh, it's the same thing there." Okay, you're all the roads there are built by Israel. Okay, every modern amenity there, and then you see on the side a Bedouin in a freaking goat cart still. Okay, he doesn't have to be in a goat. They choose to be backward and stuff and bitter and everything like that. I mean, I encourage everyone to go to Judea and Samaria and see what's going on for yourself. They say, you see, that you cannot go into the Arab cities. You are not allowed into, we're Safaeddin's from one of those cities. I was, it's Nablus. He's from Nablus. And it's Shechem. It's the proper name is Shechem. But Nablus, yeah, I could. There's a big orange sign that says, if you are Israeli, you cannot enter. In Hebrew, you will be killed. They will mob lynch you, okay? And some Germans, if I accidentally went in there once, they almost got lynched. Just German tourists somehow. I don't know how they got beyond. But no, they had their city. What they should do in Judea and Samaria, let them have their city states, okay? Say, okay, Nablus.
Hold on. Wait. It's important. I want to just, before we get there, I understand where you're going with it, but why do you think we're seeing such extreme obsession with the Jews and Israel? Because that's the collective mindset, that it's all the same, even though I'm not Israeli, I'm Canadian. You're American, you're not Israeli. So, but that distinction amongst collectivists is not important. Why do you think we're seeing that permeate in the conversation amongst people who are clearly mentally ill, people like Simon Dixon? And what do you think is the cause of it? And then the other thing is, somebody who's been in Bitcoin for so many years, was it always like this, or is this a new phenomenon?
Well, the banksters thing was always around, always blaming the banksters. Always, there were conspiracies against Bitcoin because some of these people were gold bugs. And they just transferred their conspiracy thinking to Bitcoin. Thank God for them. They gave up on gold. That was progress. But they kept this nonsense that there is some behind the scenes hand. And the Jew is the ultimate behind the scenes hand. He's mysterious. How did they become so wealthy? They don't understand that we have a Passover Seder every year where we read a book in a different language, encourage all the kids to read the book in a different language. We like to read. That is our culture. And it encourages people to get to college. Society is set up in a way that, especially now, you don't need to be strong anymore to be rich. You don't have to be able to lift a bunch of stuff, okay? You need to be able to be smart, to use your brain.
Wait, did you have this? Scott Adams talked about this on a stream, and we DM'd a little bit about this. Did you have this experience? I think that people often don't understand. I don't know about you, but I went to Hebrew school until basically my bar mitzvah age, and then we all went to public school. All of us kind of went to the public schools in our neighborhoods and whatever. And I was trying to explain to, I got friends in all sorts of different backgrounds in different countries and stuff like that. Trying to explain to our experience. I'm curious if you have the same experience, that in my schools growing up, especially, obviously, in Hebrew school, and then we were the same crew when we were in public school, that in our schools, you were cool depending on how good your grades were. That's what made you popular. And if you were the class clown, you were a loser. And the amount of unreal pressure that we were all under to perform, not by our parents, but by our friends. Like, there was so much pressure that if you didn't get on the honor roll, you were a loser and nobody wanted to talk to you, which I found out my last year of high school. I ended up going to a Catholic school at night for night school, an Israeli friend of mine, just for fun, because we had a bunch of Italian friends. And it was the complete opposite. Oh my God, I couldn't believe it. It was like, wait, Welcome Back Kotter is actually real? I thought that's fake.
Yeah,
I
went to a private school from 6th to 12th grade. And there, if you were a dork, I mean, you weren't cool, but there were plenty of people who excelled in sport, excelled in everything, that were they were respected. They were the cool kids. And then there were the stupid kids. They were disrespected, and there was pressure to do well. And it was expected at my school. Everyone was going to go to college.
Of course, that was not even a question. And as Scott Adams said, because he had a bunch of trolls online doing the Jewish conspiracy thing, and he just got fed up and he stopped and he said, "Let me explain something to you. You know why because let's call them the Albonians. You know why the Albonians they do well and they succeed?" He said, "Because they go to fucking school. How about you just go to school, and if you're singularly focused on education and acceleration and post-secondary school education, guess what's going to happen? You're going to excel in the business world as well, because you went to school."
And then here's the thing. This is another part of my philosophy that people know. Personal responsibility is the new counterculture. You got to take personal responsibility. And so many of these people in Bitcoin, they can't take personal responsibility why they're in the place that they're in. They made a bad trade and they're living a lie. They don't have any Bitcoin, so they gotta deflect. They gotta make money. They gotta get a popular algorithm thing to jump onto. Why not jump onto the conspiracy stuff? I think there's a few of them that don't believe any of the stuff about the banks.
Yeah.
There's a few that are going crazy. You mentioned, I don't want to name names or anything like that, but you've alluded to someone already who before the virus, I had a lot of respect for. And about a month after the virus, and the interview of him is on my channel still, he became such a status. Like, we got to shut down everything. This thing is scary. And just like, I couldn't believe how Simon had changed his tune. It was unbelievable. I was in shock during the show. And magically enough, that's forgotten now. He's back to be the big rebel and all this stuff, blame it on the Jews. I don't follow him at all. After that moment, I told myself I will never have him on the show again. People ask me why, what happened to Simon? I just I don't know. I literally, you were the one that informed me that he was an anti-Semite or whatever. I had no idea.
Man, every day, he spends every day on Twitter all day, every day, bitching about his Israel and Jew obsession.
Okay.
It's like he sits there and just jerks off to the elders of Zion all day long and does that on Twitter. He's mentally ill. It's crazy.
Again, this is what I'm a confident decentralist about. I don't know it. I don't care now.
Yeah.
Because right away, when you've got a good philosophy and you see that this guy breaks right away, the video is shameful. Maybe you'll link to it below. I'll send you the interview that he did. You can all watch it from 2020 when he is the biggest statist coward in the world. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And I'm like, this guy's a fake. This guy's been a fake all along. And so I never associated with him afterwards. That was it. So this is not a shock that he's jumped onto this thing too. Whatever. That's his business. He can do what he's going to do. I'm going to keep, doing what I'm doing over here. But people have no memories in this space. They don't remember a video like that. They don't remember Richard Hart. And all these people just fade into the background, and then they trust them again. They fall for the same scams again. It's sad. People need to have memory, to think. Try to remember some important stuff. If someone stabs you in the back once, they're probably going to do it again. Okay. Never forget. People. Oh, why do the Jews always say never forget? Never again. Because most people do forget in a year. They don't remember. It's not a serious thing anymore. October 7th, whatever. That's one thing. This, that, it's one thing. I growing up, learning about the Holocaust, and knowing people that were survivors and everything like that. I'm like, how can people ever forget this? And then later, I started realizing through Bitcoin stuff, like people are going to forget this. And now they're mostly dead. And yeah, they don't think it really happened. There's so many people that don't think. But I think it's great that the internet exposes us to how many morons there are out there that don't believe this happened. Because and I think they should not be suppressed. They should be able to say anything they want to. So we know that this silly thing is out there and it is serious and it needs to be addressed. And that any serious movement cannot associate with these people. Just because they like Trump doesn't mean they're good. Okay? Doesn't mean they're right about insane things. The woke right is horrific. They are marked. They are victim lovers, just like the woke left. The victim is always right. We know the real truth. There's a secret hand behind everything. Follow us. Let's get rid of the elite. Overthrow the elite. Who knows what's going to come next? But let's just get rid of the curtain. Rip it all up. It sucks now, so just rip it all up. Not total nihilism on both sides. Who cares what comes back next? It's going to be great. Yeah.
Why do you think it's important to combat this, I'd say, ideological postmodern cancer obsession with the Jews that is permeating into all aspects of society, including Bitcoin? Why do you think it's important to talk about it? And do you believe the obsession with the Jews? I'll give my opinion after, but do you believe this obsession with the Jews is unique?
Well, it is, because they are just like gold became the natural store of value. Okay, it was the best rock. The best people to stereotype are the Jews. It's just that's the way it is. It's just that's the way Western culture and the cultures that have the crappy ones that have sprung up through it, or global culture has developed that way. That is the one that people gravitate to. They are the ultimate scapegoat. And since class warfare doesn't seem to ever be going away, it will always devolve into that. That is going to be the 1% in the end of the day. So I don't think it can be cured. I think it needs to be constantly reminded that, dude, why are you envious of somebody because of their class? Because what is wrong with the elite? They didn't steal from you. No one stole. So we got to keep keeping it on that level. And so it will keep Jewish people physically safe. That's all. That to just keep it out there, so I don't have to worry about getting jacked in the United States of America, okay, because I'm a Jew or whatever. That it doesn't get to an extreme level.
It's fun.
It's just keep it. That is why freedom of speech is freaking awesome.
Yes.
So just keep it out. Just keep it out there. Don't be ashamed to use the term woke right. James Lindsay is great. He's the greatest promoter of that term. he is the best public intellectual out there right now, because all these people from the right some of them are just not using their heads. They're not Jew haters, some of the people that are going against James Lindsay. They just love their conservative nationalism so much they feel threatened by James Lindsay calling out the woke right, and they feel kind of guilty, like that they are sort of associated with the woke right. That they don't have, not all of them have problems with Tucker, but they all should have problems with Tucker. Okay, they really should. Tucker is he is great at milking this. He is great at monetizing this. He is a genius at it.
Okay, hold on.
He'll have Ben and Jerry on. He'll have
But hold on, wait. Before we
be like, oh look, I like Jews. Yeah, sure.
Hold on. Before we get into Tucker, because that's an important alignment. I think also, we hear this. I've been seeing this term. And again, I'm quite secular. I am Canadian, and it's just really obnoxious to see this permeate. But you see this, Jewish supremacy BS. Yeah. And, one of the things I learned when I was in politics and working with people who are, how should we say, concerned with certain security issues is something they seem to forget. And we all know there's often, pro-jihadi people behind the scenes pulling the strings, but from the messaging standpoint. But the reason that this was interesting to learn, why that governments are always focused on anti-Semitism. Why? Why is that so important? And
virtue signaling.
But it's a legitimate question, and there is a very practical and reasonable answer for that. It's not because they're special. It's not because there's a cabal of Jews at the top making everyone's decisions. The reason is because the security apparatuses of the West have learned over the past few hundred years, since the Inquisition, that an amplification of anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish rhetoric, whatever you want to call it, obsession with Jews, is an indicator and warning that a society is not healthy, and that further extremism and sectarian violence is likely to emerge. It's not because the Jews are special. It's because they are the canary in the coal mine that show everybody what's going to happen. Say what you can say, and I have another.
I can simplify it. Yeah. If you're getting higher levels of anti-Semitism, you're getting closer to a Marxist class revolution. You're getting closer to, so reasonable governments, and I don't know if they're actually thinking this, but it would be the logical reason they could give is like, dude, we're trying to stop a Marxist revolution before it starts. Okay, Glenn Greenwald is a Marxist, so he'll jump on all these things just to tear the agitation promotion. There's another agitprop. What is the word I'm looking for? Anyway, that for a Marxist, if you are a true Marxist, anything to rip apart society is great. So if you're trying to guard against your society being ripped apart and going to all-out physical class warfare, yeah, you should speak up against it. It's an easy way to stop class. It's a simple way to stop class warfare. Saying, hey, stop blaming the Jews instead of saying stop blaming the rich. Because some people might take it more seriously if you say stop blaming the Jews than stop blaming the rich. Some people, if you just said stop blaming the rich for everything, some people would be like, no, look at Luigi Mangione. He's pretty, he's hot. He hurt rich people, even though he's rich. Luigi Mangione, by the way, went to Gilman, which is a private school right near my private school in Baltimore. So just that hit close. That was very hit close to home. But I'm familiar with those types of people who are. Anyway, I don't want to scapegoat and generalize about certain people, but I do want to say another thing. I believe in freedom of association. Okay, so if you want to, I am perfectly comfortable with people hating me because I'm Jewish. You should be. I do not believe in thought crimes. You should be able to think the worst things about me, but you shouldn't be able to physically harm me. But again, and you should be able to express yourself like. If you had a store, there should be able to be a sign that says no Jews allowed. And then I should be able to start a boycott against you. And because I think logically that most people will be like, no, I don't want to be associated with creatures and creeps. that hate people because of their religion or their race. So in the long run, if you have a sign that says no blacks or no Jews, you will be hurt, because I believe in the logic of most people. And so I just want to make that clear. I'm a huge believer in freedom of association, and under a really true free country, we would have, you would be able to have true, we don't have true free, we have pretty good freedom of association, but if you own a hotel, you can't say, Adam, you can't stay here because you're Jewish. You should be able to do that. It's your private, I believe in full private property rights in terms of freedom of association. So I wanted to put that out there for people who are going to say, you know, he's a statist and whatnot. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong. I mean, I think you're a bad person if you think, if you do certain things and you think certain things, but I'm not going to try to control your, what you do with your own private property. And I don't want people to control how they think in their heads. I am sure, I'm not 100% sure, but at my private school, there were some people, you know, some waspy people who probably grew up in the upper ranks of Baltimore society, who in their day, their grandparents, maybe their parents said bad things about Jews. I'm not holding that against them. They treated me so well. I judge those people in the way I came to their houses. I saw their waspy houses and their nice parties and everything like that. And maybe in the end of the day, they thought certain things about Jews that were completely wrong, but they treated me as an individual. And I'm not going to be, there are some people that, you know, went to private schools like mine who are of, you know, certain minority groups. And a lot of them are Jewish people who are just like, you know, I hate those snobby upper class, but they don't have any proof they actually said anything about them.
Yeah.
So everyone can be guilty of this. Like Jewish people can be guilty of first of all, most Jewish people in America are secular. I mean, it's just like most Jewish people on earth are secular. So they're going to be lefties, and they're going to have a lot of stereotypes. I mean, what I've heard from Jewish leftists, their stereotypes about people from like Iowa and stuff, is shameful. It's disgraceful. So anyone, we're not Jewish supremacists would be like, Jews are always right. We're always right. We have the right to just make up our own rules. We're Gnostic. We have this, exactly what the woke right. We have this inner thing in our head. We're not using logic or reason. This is the stereotype of this person because this is the way I was taught, you know, whatever. These are the leftists in New York, the leftist Jewish people who do not even practice Judaism anymore. Maybe they'll go to a reform shul one day, but they'll have a Christmas tree, and they'll be like, oh yeah, those people in Iowa are hicks. They're stupid. Or they'll refuse to consider like Salt Lake City is a great place, even though it's so freaking safe.
Let me ask you something about what you touched on a minute ago in terms of, you know, businesses not being able to discriminate in any way possible. I personally believe that, unfortunately, because of human behavior, a free market sometimes needs a little bit of a push. And that's why we have common carrier laws. That's why, you know, the electrical company can't decide, well, we're not going to provide electricity to that house because they're Jews, because you can't discriminate. Same as common carrier laws apply to airlines. That doesn't matter, you know, what the person's religious, ethnic affiliation is. If they have money and they want to buy a ticket, they can buy a ticket. What do you think?
My answer to that is that you can't be a tree. If you end up living in a country or a state,
yeah,
that you totally get you get cut off in a way that's just like unbearable. You got to move, man. You got to go. We're never gonna. God willing, we're never gonna have a world. If we get a worldwide government, that's why I believe decentralization, true decentralization, is so important. The more countries out there, the better. The more options out there, the better. We should embrace secession. Instead of secession is associated with racism, and that's incorrect. It should be associated with decentralization and freedom. Sometimes you can secede for evil reasons. Sometimes you can secede for very, very righteous reasons. Okay, so that should be. If you don't have that on the table, there is some tyranny going on. That's a little scary. So I do like that Canada that is on the table. We in the United States is kind of up in the air now. Like, but first of all, would young Americans today go to war against Wyoming if it just left and joined Canada? Would people want to die for that? I don't think so. But again, going back to your base question there, needing the little push. That was the argument behind the 1965 Civil Rights Act. They were able to go beyond the line. Black people should have had given all the rights. It didn't make it right then to take away people's property rights, and that is what it is. I know it sounds mean. There's always going to be little edge cases. You're always going to be for those people that are in the edge cases. They got to move. They got to leave. They got to figure it out. I don't believe in the common good. I believe individuals got to figure it out for themselves. Okay, they really got. There are other options out there. You can get out unless there's a one world government or whatever. All right.
You touched on something before, and I diverted it away, but I'm curious to know, because there's been a lot of crossover philosophically between Bitcoin and freedom and the Freedom Convoy. Tucker Carlson, and I was on Tucker Carlson's show and a bunch of other shows like that during that period of time. What's your thoughts on what is going on right now? And maybe give us the 50,000-foot view. And what do you think's driving this?
Going on exactly with what? The woke right? Or
the woke right. Maybe define it as you see it. Like, what do you see the woke right is, and where does Tucker fall into this?
Okay, I do want to preface this by one thing. I like to analyze it philosophically based on what I'm seeing. A lot of people always are going to go to this. I don't think the correct way to approach it is like it's being funded by enemies of America. I am sure that, yes, there are all sorts of influencers. Now that it's started, it pays, if you don't like America, to start funding these people. Mm-hmm. Was it a massive conspiracy at the very beginning before all this stuff started spreading? There's no proof of that, and I think that's getting caught up in the weeds. But right now, it is profitable to jump on some alternative right beliefs. And the algorithm is definitely favorite, just like the algorithm favors the most mindless things in cryptocurrency, like this altcoin going to 2,000, there's so many predictable things that the algorithm promotes. Well, right now, something that is very popular is, alt-right conspiracies, or straight up anti-Semitism has become accepted by some. It's good to get clout that way. There's people that are so greedy for clout and influence and just popularity and just being known, being famous. They're going to say anything. So that helps spread it. That helps mainstream it. And fine. That's why we have to call it out. But so what's behind the Tucker thing? Well, the Tucker, there is a wing of just society that even during World War II, before World War II, like, we can't get involved in this. We can't get involved in it. It's their problem in Europe. Mm-hmm. Very isolationist. And there are logical reasons to be isolationist, okay? Yeah. And and some of the things Trump has said through all the years have been very isolationist and have been very much the working man has been kept down. I want to help the working man. The working class is in very bad shape. And working classism, which I do not believe in. I do not believe in class warfare, has been very popular in America and the world for a while. Some people from the left have taken that populism, like let's just get rid of the elites, to the Marxist extreme, where like the working man is the ultimate. The working man is behind all business. If there wasn't for the working man, there would be no business. The CEOs, they come up with the ideas, okay? But what's a brain? You need brawn. Brain, it's all about brain and brawn, and and so let's build our country. Let's help the working man. I don't care what's going on in the world. The United States doesn't need any allies. We are great. We don't need to trade. And so let's just focus on this class warfare. Let's figure out a way to help the work, and then on the left side of the working man thing, and then the whole world will become a worker's paradise. On the right side, they're like, and then the United States will become the working man's paradise, and there will be no more elites, and we'll be so rich from our factories and everything like that. So I mean, some of those things are somewhat innocent. They're naive. They're stupid. They're around envy, and so Tucker has always held these things, and I think for him, what he likes alternative views. He likes to platform people. He's seen that this makes him very popular. You know, saying controversial things makes you popular. So I do not know if he truly he doesn't like Israel. He doesn't fully understand Israel. Is he anti-Semitic? I don't think he is, actually. I don't think I like this Jew, but he knows how to milk that audience so well. So in terms of what the woke right is, for me, it's very simple. It's on the right. It is a collectivist view on the right side of things, okay? It is the state before the individual, the country before the individual, okay? And common good, all right? And that there is a victim group here, and that has been the working man. That has been the common good, has been forgotten. And we are victims of, what's it called? Worldwide, the globalism. And it is all these elite people that we don't fully understand. If we just got rid of them, everything would be good. The woke left is the same thing. If we just got rid of the powerful, everything would be good. If we just got rid of these elite, everything would be good. So it is this class warfare Marxism extreme that the woke left and the woke right clearly share. So, I mean, that is woke. Woke is victim culture, okay? The victim is always right. The victim knows best. Whoever's designated the victim. I'm the victim. It's great to be the victim. And here's our plan to overthrow the system, to get back at the elite who were the perpetrators to us victims, okay? So on the right, it's clearly trending toward the Jews. It's like, it's fine, yeah. But it's on the woke right, on the woke right. Mm-hmm. It's like, this is acceptable now. We have this special Gnostic look. We had these historians who have now World War II it wasn't about the Jews. It wasn't the Jews. The Zionists were about the Zionists had something to do with World War II. The twisting of different movements and different things that were going on at the time.
Yeah,
it's just like the naivete. All right, and there's scary names out there like what's that the big banking family that's the cause of everyone's problems. The secret trillionaires of the world that they still blame. Rothschilds.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the Rothschild. That ties it all in together. I mean, it's not so. If the Rothschilds were Jewish, even the Rothschilds are still alive. They're not Jews anymore. They became secular in the 1700s. I mean, it's like they're Christian. They're just whatever they are. I don't know. And there's morons out there that still think there's a master Rockefeller family controlling the whole. I met Bitcoiners who told me this in my face. They don't know the Rockefellers. Not the Rockefellers. Excuse me. What's it?
Bilderbergs.
Huh?
Bilderbergs?
Crap! Have I been calling them the Rockefellers? The
Rothschilds.
Rothschild. Excuse me. Yeah. Rothschild. Hopefully, I said Rothschilds, not Rockefeller.
You did. Okay,
yeah. The Rothschilds still control the Rothschild banking. So the Rockefellers, they have. I don't think the Rockefellers weren't even Jewish, but people accuse them of being Jewish.
Well, anybody, yes. And it's called in Jew obsessed math. It's called always solving for Jew.
Yeah.
What's the problem? How do you blame a Jew?
We just call him a Jew, like Jordan Peterson is a Jew. Rupert Murdoch's a Jew. All these people that aren't Jews, they just say are Jews. Stephen Hicks is a Jew.
That by the way, an intelligence expert in this area was telling me many years ago, and it's involved in politics. That all comes out of the Middle East. That's exactly what that is.
Yeah, I have learned in the Middle East. I mean, their straight up conspiracies are in their mainstream. It's amazing.
Oh yeah,
they have conspiracy shows about Jews on some of these countries that are allies with Israel. You sign a piece of paper with Egypt, and you say they're your friends, and they don't go to war with you anymore. But their state propaganda has like Jewish conspiracy television shows on. I mean, it's insane. Mm-hmm. And Israel's still the bad guy. It's unbelievable. Israel can have ha'aretz. which is like a socialistic, Jew-hating newspaper.
Which is the one they always quote. They always
love
quote
I love how they pronounce it too. They pronounce it so wrong. They don't understand. And let them quote it. Let them quote. They don't even get that there are so many communists. Israel, their communist party has gotten like 5% of the nation. I mean, they let people be so free that it's cool to be. You can still be a communist. There, 5% of people are in America, or 5% of people willing to join a communist party. No, they are not. No, they are. And I don't know if it's that high in Israel anymore. But in the United States of America, what percentage of people would vote for a communist party? Less than 0.1. I mean, it's so
nobody with a functioning brain.
But my point is this: but they call the Jews there so hard right, my tachlis. Okay, Netanyahu will do anything to stay in power. Okay, he'll make coalitions with the Arabs, make coalitions with this third. I want to point this out. I pointed this out on other shows, and I mentioned this to you. There's this like mid-wit way of like showing that you're so smart. Like, I'm not going to say it's Israel's fault. I'm not going to say it's the Arabs' fault. It's just they got rid of Netanyahu. That's the problem. He's the culprit. And they got rid of Ben-Gvir and Smotrich. Look, I know how to pronounce these rightist names. Ben-Gvir and Smotrich. I'm so smart. I can pronounce it. Look, I know about Israeli politics. We got to get rid of them. So the Biden administration has the right to interfere in Israeli politics. I mean, that's just insane. That's insane. It's a sovereign nation. No, we're not going to deal with you until you get rid of Imagine if some country said to us, like, no, we're not going to deal with you if you have AOC or if you have Ted Cruz in Senate. I mean, no, we're not going to. What the hell? No, this is what the people. It doesn't have to do. What the hell? Let us do what we're going to do here. But no, those are there's people when they start saying the Smotrich and Netanyahu and Ben-Gvir thing, and for the Weinsteins do that. They are smart men with high IQs. They don't know what about this, okay? They're trying to fit in still, all right? It's a way to fit in and say, no, I really haven't gone full right. I feel guilty about supporting Israel. You're still a freaking class warrior and everything. If you blame, it's just a distraction. If they got rid of Ben-Gvir and they got rid of Netanyahu, the Arabs would still be attacking Israel. What would this solve? It would not solve anything. If Israel gave up all of Judea and Samaria, God forbid, they would still attack Israel. Okay?
Well, that's what they didn't get.
Got to win the war. That's all it is. Israel has to win the war. End it finally. After all these years, end it finally. Just win it. End it. They surrender like Japan. They say, we're not going to do this anymore, and we're doing it on your terms. Whatever you want. Stop. We attacked you. We lost. We've lost many a time now. We don't want to do this anymore. And I think it's great that Israel is so humanitarian. If you live in Gaza right now, you're watching this, you can leave. They will help you leave. But one of the things that Ben-Gvir people have proposed over the years is, why don't we pay all the Arabs to leave Judea and Samaria and Gaza? Why don't we just pay them all to leave? It would have been a lot cheaper when Kahana suggested it in 1984. It was 40 years ago when Kahana suggested pay all these Arabs to leave. How many lives would have been saved? How much brutality would have gone? We wouldn't have had to experience. Okay, there are many a country out there that would accept these people from Gaza, and they would have better lives in wherever. Okay, they would have better lives. They lost. They got to stop doing this to civilized people, okay? They got to stop doing it. If people say, I know it's, people have heard it a million times. If the Arabs in Judea and Samaria and Gaza just stopped bombing Israel, there would be peace. They would live in peace. Israel would leave. Let them have their thing. Let Gaza be a state. They gave the Gazans a state. Look what they got. They got a nightmare. They got a horrible night. They should no. Trump's plan to make it into some paradise. That's great. Yeah, they should just bulldoze the whole thing, move everybody out. If people want to move back in and be civilized, they could do that. If they're not civilized when they move back in, they get kicked out again. Okay.
Why do you think? And this might be a little bit of a philosophical question. You see the alliance of the woke right and Tucker Carlson and the woke left, Glenn Greenwald. There's no surprise that they're very close with each other. But why do you think it is so lost on some people in the West who claim to be individualistic, but they're unable to process that the reason Israel is seen, which is really it's, let's say the United States has a lot of influence over Israel, not the other way around, because, Israel is exactly the same size as El Salvador in area-wise and population-wise. They're not controlling the United States, the largest economy in human history. But my question is, the people who get obsessed with Israel, and they're primed for it, they're just repeating things they're hearing over and over again. Why can't they process that you're seeing the front line between Western individualist civilization and theocratic authoritarianism, which we're all supposed to be against as Westerners?
Some of them think Israel is a theocracy. They're just stupid. They think it's a theocracy.
They really think that?
Yeah, there's plenty of people that think that. And it's just a Jewish supremacist state. The Jew is this, the Jew. They don't know that the Arabs are even there. They literally do not know that Arabs in they don't know the difference between when people are screaming about.
Hold on.
We should call it. First of all, don't call it the W Bank. You don't call it. It's Judea and Samaria. It's very good that Ben Shapiro has. Yeah. I've always called it Judea and Samaria. If you drive around there, it doesn't say. It says Judea and Samaria. That's what it says on the signs. Okay, that is what it is. It is Judea.
Hold on. Why can't
the communists? Don't give the woke people an inch. Don't give them an inch. That's what we call them out.
Adam, why can't the woke right and people obsessed with Israel? Why can they not process that no one in Israel gets along? That's why they have 160 some odd political parties, because everybody's an expert and everyone has 20 different ways they want to do stuff. Yet all of a sudden the Jews are a monolith. What are you talking about?
Collectivism and tribalism is the default for humanity. Individualism is the accomplishment. Okay, you have to use your head. So everyone's going to get tribal on certain things sometimes. We're not perfect, okay? But that's why philosophy is important, to just train yourself not to be an animal anymore, not to be primitive anymore, to judge people by their race. That is primitive. It is not thinking. If you start to study cultures and the way people individually act and take it apart, then you're being individualistic, okay? See things first through a cultural lens, not through a religious lens, not through a racial lens. The culture. See, what's resulted from this culture? What are the individuals in these cultures promoting? Or is there individualism here? Is it just like everyone's got to follow some witch doctor or not? They don't get it. They're used to following a witch doctor. So they're like, the Jew in Israel is following some witch doctor, okay? Their witch doctor might be a secular witch doctor like or like Donald Trump. Or you should not treat Trump like a witch doctor. If you do that, you will easily slip into scapegoating, blaming the elite, and going down a very tribal route of blaming the Jews, blaming the elite. You will become victim oriented.
It's a perfect example of the case you're making. Don't follow a witch doctor. El Salvador. What happened in El Salvador now?
Legal tender. It's funny that Bitcoin. I said it for once. Milei jumped on the scene. I'm like, oh my god, this guy's way better than the dude in El Salvador. But yet, amongst Bitcoiners, they still favor they'll still favor the El Salvador dude over Milei. What's that? Bukele is his name. Now Bukele has not, he talks a big game, but then he sort of made big. He gave into the IMF some, and he's a good marketer, and he does know how to. I think jumping on the Bitcoin bandwagon was good for his country. It has allowed him to get away with some very authoritarian things. We definitely don't want a leader who just throws away some aspects of the rule of law like he has. What some of the nefarious influences behind him are, I cannot prove. And all I do is I look at reality, what I see from my face with him. The country has become safer. There's no doubt about it. It's become more authoritarian. He could be cooed at any moment. I would never buy property down there. So just you can study the situation. You can say it's great that he was the first one to adopt Bitcoin. It did help Bitcoin. But objectively, you got to say, if the Argentine plan succeeds and it doesn't force Bitcoin upon people, that anyone can use any type of money down there, and I think it will be so much better than what comes about in El Salvador. It will be what true freedom is. Okay, what Milei is preaching is true freedom. What he is preaching, he has slipped up a few times. He's like, the grocery stores are paying Bukele. This is a woke right thing, what he did. Bukele has said, the grocery stores are they're charging too much. Like, I shut down this group. You should be careful. You should consider lowering your prices. Those are price controls. Okay, those are price controls that are for the good of the nation. That is interference with private property. That is really confiscation of private property. You no longer own your grocery business, because then now you got to listen to the dictator who says you got to lower the prices or else. We might start researching you, okay? But now we still have the Senate and we still have these judges and everything like that. But if you don't lower grocery prices at my command, you might get an investigation. But it's for the good of the nation, because people, the nation is victims. We're being fleeced by these evil capitalist grocers. They're charging too much. We are victims.
Sounds like AOC.
Yeah, well, but he is on the right. He
is he?
The woke right. The woke right thinks that's cool. That they would think price controls are fine, like for the good. I mean, these things have been suggested. If JD Vance said, "Yeah, they're what's something? It's just this ISP is charging too much. They got to lower their prices." The woke right would be like, "Yeah, stick it to the elite. Look at the demand. We're getting back," and then there'd be all these horrible. The markets would be destroyed. I mean, it's terrible.
The other thing I found interesting going to El Salvador a couple of times, the last time I was there, I went with Callum, formerly of Lotus Leaders, and he's got a YouTube channel called Britannica.
Yep.
And, he wanted to see what's happened in El Salvador as it truly changed, and wanted to learn about Bitcoin, and managed to orange pill him in the process. He's, by the way, in Iraq right now, and hopefully he makes it out alive. He's got another 4 days, and he's been mugged half a dozen times, but let's hope he survives. It was interesting and maybe it's so funny, maybe because I read Spanish and I can understand Spanish, I could go back and read the news articles and the history of this guy, that he was part of FMLN. That's the Communist Party that he used to be affiliated with, which has a communist guerrilla faction that his father was very much involved in. And he used to often say, when he was the mayor of San Salvador, and prior to that he was the mayor of, what's it called, Catalan, I think it's called. He used to say frequently in speeches, "Soy de izquierda radical, está mi sangre. I am a radical leftist. It's in my blood." Yet Tucker Carlson comes along, introduces him to the world. Oh, he's a good Christian conservative. What are you talking about?
That's why woke right is the correct term. We're looking at right and left. Let's focus on the woke part. The woke part. The victim class versus the oppressor class. It's on both sides. So, yeah, he could naturally go from being a communist wokester to being a rightist wokester. As long as there's a class warfare scapegoat, okay? Yeah, that is, why not? The IMF to him, or the World Bank, he was getting back at the banksters right now. The right has made it totally cool, and this is why Bitcoiners say that. Some of them are like, yeah, of course I'm on the right. It's totally fine to be envious of the banksters, to confiscate property from the so-called banksters. But all that is Marxism. All that is collectivism, okay? Classism, right there.
And it's also propaganda, because you never hear a name. It's always the ambiguous group, but there's never any details, right?
Of course, because it leaves it up in the air for the Gnostic leader to tell you who the banksters are this time, who the elite are this time. It can keep switching and switching. The grocer is the elite, it's very fascistic, picking winners and losers. but this is picking the winner and the loser based on who I classify of the enemy of the state, of the victim of the state, and the one who's being the oppressor of the state, who's creating victims in the state. So if I have identified the oppressor of the state, I, as the state, can eliminate him so that the one who was made victim will be whole, and this will be good for the state. Okay, and I know who the real victim and the oppressor is. Okay, and I at the spur of the moment I can change my mind. I mean, this is wokeism, very, very much defined on either side. So yeah, communism naturally is the horseshoe theory. There, it's the horseshoe theory. So having Ben and the communist Ben and Jerry on Tucker, naturally people are like, oh yeah.
Yeah,
but he says
he said what a wonderful guy he is.
The woke right people are always like, oh yeah, this confiscation of private property sounds pretty good. Oh yeah, the United States is the evil villain. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. They never knew that the Marxists were saying that. Oh wow, they agree with us. Yeah, there's plenty of that. The strong is bad. Yeah, these leftists are right. I mean, that's woke. That's woke. So yeah, it is the term woke right. Think about it. Use your brain. It makes 100% sense calling them the woke right. A lot of people are like, don't use woke, it's leftist. No. It's not. It's again, victim oppressor culture there.
And you know what the problem is? Then they get them backed into a corner. I notice the woke people always do, the collectivists do, because, for example, let's compare. Millet being legitimate, he's going to be in power because he's got some agreements with the Conservative Party down there for his mandate. For whatever the term is in Argentina. What's it, 6 years? It's usually in Latin America, 6 years?
5 years. He's got 5-year term.
Okay. Yeah, something like that. All right. Whereas what's going to happen with, my friends and I call him Mr. Baseball Cap in El Salvador, because he was supposed to have one term. He managed to finagle himself by doing some shady stuff with the judiciary and replacing a judge so he could weasel his way into a second term. Okay, I think one term might be a little bit unrealistic, but 2 terms, okay. What's happening for term 3? Because what we did see on the ground when we were, and this is legitimate, a concern, Callum and I he was doing this video is, look, people are really worried. They bought into a frame now that if Bukele's not there, the gangs will come back. They think that's what's going to happen. Okay, well, what happens after 2 terms? Is there going to be more shenanigans and violation of the Constitution to give him a 3rd term? Are we now becoming a dictatorship at that point? And does he need to? Because what happens if the opposition, let's assume in a perfect world, the opposition actually gets their crap together and becomes a real party. It's a long stretch, but let's assume, I don't know, Arena becomes a legitimate party and they get rid of all the problems with that party right now. Okay, fine. And are they going to be, one of the opposition parties going to be the next leaders of El Salvador? And if so, then do we find out why the National Security Advisor, Alejandro, was murdered in custody? The real Bitcoiner, by the way, that all the Bitcoiners have now abandoned and forgotten. He's the one who wanted to jail the gangs. He's the one who wanted to make Bitcoin the legal tender. There seems to be no loyalty amongst anybody, yet the UN is asking questions and being ignored by the Salvadorian government. So has he now trapped himself that he needs to become a dictator? Because if not, then a follow-up leadership or administration may start asking questions finally. Just asking questions. Who killed your national security advisor?
Well, see, this is an interesting point you bring up. If violence was used to entrench oneself in power, I'm one of the people who have retweeted some of the things about Alejandro that are out there. Unfortunately, mostly in Spanish. I think more Bitcoiners should know about that. In terms of freedom, if that really happened, if a high-ranking official was beaten close to death and then eventually died. It was disgusting looking. Then you don't really want to be in that country. That's some scary underlying stuff. So if stuff like that, shady stuff like that really went down, dictatorial stuff like that went down to entrench oneself in power, then of course you don't want that being found out. No, you're going to try to keep yourself entrenched in power. But but what you're going to do is, if you're smart about it, you're going to have the funding behind it. You're going to ally yourselves with people who will fund you to keep you in power. But also, what I would do if they've done some really shady things, and I'm not saying, I don't know this Alejandro guy. It looked really suspicious. It looked horrible. If he did that or anything close to that, and he knows that's going to come out, what he should do now, and maybe he's already positioning himself, is like, Trump seems to like him, just like keep on doing whatever Trump tells him to do. And just be like, I'm going to let these elections happen, or I'm going to let a possible transition happen. But if I get kicked out, can you come in and save my butt? Or can you come in and fund me to actually take the action that will be a little bit radical? So I don't think he will pull anything desperate without having funding from a third party or approval of a third party. Unfortunately, Trump is very transactional. And he's just like, if this guy becomes a Trump sycophant, he'll probably be able to get away with the third term pretty easily, even if the people don't want him to have a third term. So, I mean, there's some jockeying that can go on. I think the bigger point here is we really need to look into there's some questions about how this dude maintains power, okay? And we can't blindly worship the dude. Again, it was great that he did the Bitcoin stuff, but it's just like, don't put the guy. I always said, never put any of these people on pedestals. Don't put Simon Dixon on a pedestal. Don't put Trace Mayer on a pedestal. Don't put Andreas on a pedestal. They're always going to disappoint you with something eventually. And so in terms of leadership, don't put Bukele on a pedestal, and really be willing to criticize and critique the guy, because it is that part of the region of the world is very unstable, and their tradition is coups. That's just a tradition down there. So.
I think also what my bigger concern is, what was in 2024 or 23, I'm forgetting the years. Everything's just a mishmash right now. But that the Emir of Qatar was there 7 times, if I'm not mistaken. And
that'd be a great place to get funding from. They just fund everything. They fund everything. They're what Qatar does, and that video Dan Seymour had on his channel, Call Me Back. Check out Call Me Back. It's a good, if you want Israel updates on it, but he had a Qatar expert on there. Yeah. And basically with Qatar, it's clearly not a good nation. And what they're trying to do, though, is throw all the money around. They can just keep on clearly not being a good nation, but not be lumped in with the evil nations. And I think it's been a good strategy for them. Just throw as much money around, support the Muslim Brotherhood openly, okay, which they do, which I did not really fully understand. But since you throw so much money around, they're like, okay, we can have a base there. Yeah, they do some shady things, and Pakistan does some shady things too. Like, but they're not the bad guys. We'll like them, and if you keep getting money from them, it makes it easier. It makes it easier. So. And they're not hiding anything. It's not like it's not like they're a massive conspiracy to take over the world. They're just trying to keep on being shady, bad dudes that can get away with it. And they got all the money in the world. So, and then they can call it, they don't like Israel. They can cause problems over there. They can be popular by funding the people that are fighting Israel. But since they're not directly doing the killing and they're bribing everybody else, no one does anything about it. So they're like Teflon. I guess it's kind of fun for them.
Yeah, it's interesting. They gave, the estimates are up to, I think the number was 2024, but I'm not sure. Up to $20 billion they invested into U.S. Universities. That would work out to $55,000 per Qatari citizen. Now, why they all want education visas to go to the U.S.? Is that why, or maybe they're doing something else? And that's part of the reason the Emir of Qatar is actually on thin ice.
I think it's important to know if someone's taking money from Qatar. I think it's important, but I just want to stress with people: I don't think it's a massive. like the people who are going to say Qatar controls the world, they're the one. That's why we're having these woke parades. That's what we're doing. That's why we have all this chaos in the streets. All Qatar's fault. No, it's not all Qatar's fault. And
it's not all, but it's a big part.
It's not a secret. They're not doing it secretly either.
That's right.
This is not. I don't want to get into because you go down these rabbit holes. And and you sound like saying blame the Jews on it, not you, but some people could go down that road and just being super duper paranoid about Qatar. No, they are very wealthy people. They are not good. Their philosophy is not good. They are open about what their philosophy is. They're trying to be mediators. That's their gimmick right now. And they can, as long as they keep bribing lots of people openly with money, they can say, look, we're mediators. And yeah, we believe in some bad things, but we can get away with it because we're mediators, and they can just enjoy their status. I don't know. It's just like it appears they like to be in this like limbo where they're just in a wealthy limbo where they can't go straight out evil because they know if they went straight out Iran, started building a nuclear weapon, started threatening free countries. If they started threatening free countries directly, the bribes would not work anymore. Really. So they can believe that it's cool for other countries to threaten free countries. And we can kind of imply that. But as long as we pay people, we can keep that up. So they let everybody else do the dirty work for them. Their philosophy is pretty dirty and bad, but let the other people do it. And we can keep, we can have a channel that has lots of propaganda on it. That's very agitating. But no, we don't hold us responsible because we gave you some help once.
Yeah,
we're trying to be a mediator. It's not a good. It's a bad thing. Is it sinister and hidden? No, it's all out there. The Muslim Brotherhood. This is another thing that I think people don't get. They support the Muslim Brotherhood, but I think because it's called the Muslim Brotherhood, people are like, well, religion isn't that bad. They're not that. It's a terrorist organization. It's the founder of all other terrorist organizations. That's why people need a bit of an education. So I think people, if they were saying, hey, yeah, we are funding Al Qaeda, people would be like, wait a second, we can't deal with these people. They're straight up saying they fund Al Qaeda,
which was a wing of the Muslim Brotherhood.
It's the same thing, really.
That's
if you're
right.
saying we fund the Muslim Brotherhood, it's just as bad. It's just as bad.
What people don't understand is all these, proxy organizations, ground level, Jamaat-e-Islami, ISIS, Al Qaeda. They are all proxies from an overarching Muslim Brotherhood that operates in every country in the world. And what you've just addressed is there are two schools of thought within the Muslim Brotherhood, and that's why there's always friction. And right now, Hizb ut-Tahrir is taking advantage of it, which is there's the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, Hassan al-Banna, and he was very in favor of peaceful infiltration and subversion. As he said many times, we'll embed ourselves in their house and destroy it from the inside. But then you have the Sayyid Qutb people. They want to take guns and go out and shoot people. And so there's always this friction between the two. And what you're seeing with Qatar is you're seeing the ideological framing from Hassan al-Banna, which, who was living in Qatar until he died a few years ago, Yusuf Qaradawi, the number one spiritual leader of the Muslim Brotherhood globally. That's how much they're entrenched there. But Westerners, because we don't think in terms of tribes, because we're individualistic and we look at the individual person, we struggle to understand how these collectivist tribes operate in the Western world now, which is what we're dealing with. That's why you see all these protests all over the internet.
It's very simple. You mentioned these two different groups, and then you mentioned Westerners. Let's take it up a level. Their uniting thing, Muslim Brotherhood, Al Qaeda, whoever peaceful one, infiltrating ones or violent ones, it's all one big. The end goal is destroy Western civilization. Don't let the United States cannot be in charge. We need to have our way in charge. We're gonna get there somehow, and that Western civilization must be. It's not going to be what everybody has been used to for the last 50, 60, 70 years since World War II as what's defined as Western civilization. We don't like the paradigm since then. So China doesn't either. So they're not going to go after China. They would be friends of theirs. Tucker Carlson and the woke right don't like it either. So guess what? They're all going to be friends too. Tucker Carlson understands their anger. He understand. The woke right understand. They're thinking about it. Like, yeah, Western civilization since World War II has been horrible. Of course, they're going to be angry. What's wrong with taking money from the Qataris? What's wrong with legitimizing what the terrorists are doing in Judea and Samaria and Gaza? What's wrong with that? Western civilization has oppressed them. We need a new paradigm. No, we don't want Islam to take over, though. No. We don't want to. But I can see their point, so we should let them have their point because they're doing some dirty work for us here. They're calling out Israel and Churchill and all these good things. But
Adam, and why? And we touched on it before, but we didn't get into this specific detail. Brigitte Gabriel's been talking about this for many, many years. Since the Holy Land terrorism funding trial, which was the largest terrorist funding trial in American history in 91 or 92, it was billions of dollars. That explains how money was flowing from the Middle East to build out all these proxy organizations to destroy the West from within. This is all in court documents. It's not my opinion. And one of the things they found was the principal charter of the Global Muslim Brotherhood, and they translated it. And what did it say? It said, in the West, our biggest opportunity is to use Israel to drive a wedge amongst Westerners in Western civilization. And now what are we seeing? We're seeing everything is the Jews and Israel. That's where this comes from. And when you mention the Chinese, that's what in the political world, they talk about the red-green alliance. Yeah. It's not an alliance. They're not working directly to them usually, but they'll play off one another because they both want to see chaos in the West. In the case of China, is because they want to weaken their competition for global dominance around the world. Whereas the green side is ideologically driven based on religious tribalism, which we don't understand in the West.
Again, if you want world revolution, you're going to, we discussed beforehand, why do legitimate governments you bring up anti-Semitism? Because it's the canary in the coal mine of world revolution. So right. Chinese world revolution looks a lot different than caliphate world revolution, okay? But they all want world revolution. So you take the easiest thing. You pick the Jew. You pick the class warfare. It's very easy. It's very easy to do. Right. So there's probably other movements too out there we just don't know about that would love to pick the Jew. It's a good thing. If you've gotten prominence in your way of world revolution, you're gonna take the necessary steps to go further with it. Okay, but let me tell you something here. Let them. This is why the woke right thing is so important, and talking about it is so important. Let them try. Let them try. Let them all try this. I'm a confident decentralist. Let them do their propaganda. Let the Qataris spend money. Okay, but call it out. So, and say, hey, the senator accepted this much money from Qatar. Why did he do that? Do you think that's a good idea? At the same time, if any of these groups engage in war against you, you defeat them. You crush them. You crush them immediately. No, because the West is way stronger than any of these enemies. The technological sophistication of the West, of the United States, of Israel, destroys any of its direct enemies, okay? You compare what Israel brings to the table in terms of war against any of its neighbors or these terrorists within its borders, of Gaza and Judea and Samaria. Israel could crush them all in one day. They could end the Iran threat immediately. It could be ended immediately. But they choose, because of the guilt, because of the narrative that's accepted, they just don't do it. They don't do it. That's why we have to call this out and just make it more, just as it's now more mainstream to say, world revolution is cool if it gets rid of the oppressors. We have to make it clear that destruction of the evil is a very good thing. Okay, or you're going to die. You cannot take sacrifice and altruism to its end game, because you will die. I am not sacrificing myself so there can be a world caliphate, or so that China can take over the world, or Russia can take over the world. Okay, if they have gone against me physically At that point, the threat is getting really serious, and they must be crushed. Whoever did it, there must be no doubt, and surrender will be on our terms. Surrender will be on our terms, not their terms. There's no debate. Japan and Germany, it was not on their terms. They were crushed. And look at them now. They're good behaving citizens of the world. Okay, those ideologies were the most evil things ever imagined. It was unbelievable how crazy things got. Mm-hmm. But you could turn it around. Same thing with North Korea. They can't be. God forbid they ever did something completely insane. They would have to. No, you can't worship him anymore. It's over. It's over. You just totally get rid of it. So you cannot sacrifice your stuff. I mean, that's a very important part of philosophy, because if you do not have like self-confidence in yourself, you're eventually going to just. That's the ultimate altruism. Let me die. I don't deserve to live. Let them live instead of me.
Any parting thoughts, things you want to promote, comments on Bitcoin, where we're going?
Yeah, I'm looking over my things right now. God, I think we covered everything there. That is just no. I do want to remind everyone: our standard of living in the United States is incredible. People are willing to almost die to get here. It is the best place to live on Earth in the history of mankind right now. It really is. It's not perfect. It is not perfect. We have our problems. We have our flip, and it's a huge. There are 50 different states. You can, it sucks in New York when they have anti-Semitic rallies, and that make you and people start blocking your way to. And physically, might if you're a Chabad guy or just a guy dressed up, clearly Jewish in Brooklyn, and you get attacked physically there. That sucks, but you can move. And it's not the rule of law should be enforced. Some cities aren't very good at enforcing the rule of law in the United States. There are plenty of places here which you have all these stereotypes about being like Jew-hating places, like the Mountain West. The Mountain West, where I am, is they don't know what you do. They don't care. You do what you want to do. No problem at all.
They're not threatened.
No. It's so many stereotypes. We've got a lot of things are backwards. People are like, oh, liberal cities are so safe for everyone. No, some of them, it's just there's no rule of law anymore. They're filthy, they're dirty, they're bad. Mm-hmm. And but if you go to a place that's like even a blue city in a red state, it's much better. It's just there's more rule of law. There's more people. It's not a bunch of dumb hicks in the middle of the country. Stop thinking that people violent. Yeah. It's like, again, and Trump does gain traction on that because people were tired of being called all that stuff. It is true that you're not a stupid dumb hick if you're in Iowa, but at the same, and you should be proud of who you are, and you should be happy that you live in a safe place. But if your town happens to not have a factory anymore, it doesn't entitle you to the divine right of stagnation. Okay, that the government should come in and build you new factories. Subsidize new factories or make it so that you can just live the life you were living in 1983 still. You don't have that right. You can try to recreate it. You can move to a place where you might be closer to it, but you have no right to force the government to pay for it and to give you a job to prop up your dying industry. There's some industries that just do not make sense in the United States anymore. We should not have the government planning it. That is economic fascism right there. So no,
yeah, we don't need steamships anymore.
Divine right of stagnation. That's an Ayn Rand term. Learn it, don't live it, baby.
All right, brother. Where can people find you?
Just on Twitter, TECHBALT. That's Techbalt, Technology Baltimore. Just look up Adam Meister, Bitcoin Meister on YouTube. All the videos, I still do. This will be on my channel. I still do videos every once in a while and everything. I've really been trying to get more into this philosophical thing and just getting people to not be trees and reconsider different parts of the country. I really think I've discovered a jewel out here in Salt Lake City. It's growing. It's more. I have no problem with people moving here that don't want to force change upon people. A lot of people we don't need more Californians. Well, not all Californians are bad, although it is. I can see why it's annoying when you've got your Dodgers World Championship flag out there with your Kamala sign. That's a little annoying. Like you're revealing who you are there.
What if it's an Orioles flag?
You're like, I still like the Dodgers. I left LA and vote for Kamala. I live in Salt Lake City. It's not a good look. You're free to do what you're going to do. No one's going to rip down your sign or anything. No one ripped down their sign. I saw this with my own eyes.
Yeah.
But but the funny thing is Californians have so many people on either coast have so many stereotypes about Mormons, which are totally wrong. Mormons are what I've encountered. They're individualistic people who care very much about their families, who read, who care about success. But that has actually kept out Californians. And so to a point where it's like more moved to Boise. Boise is great also. But so like Mormons are a shield. It's funny. The complete wacky Mormons are hated more than Jews, really. The things that people openly say about Mormons, it's worse than Jews. It's more commonly accepted. Like if you start saying an anti-Semitic thing, most likely in polite company, someone is going to be like revolted, and like it's more accepted now amongst like these dirty, disgusting people like Candace. But if you say bad things about Mormons, like amongst leftists, regular high esteemed leftists, who would be like, how dare you say anything about blacks or Jews? They'd be like, yeah, the Mormons are pretty bad. Yeah, they're a cult or something like that. They have 2 wives. Just complete lies. But the Mormons are a shield against some radical leftists here. It's pretty cool. I love it. And people are like, don't give away the secret, Adam. Don't give it. I'm like,
yeah. Well, I think the reality is most people just want to be left alone, which is supposed to be the ethos of what Bitcoin is.
It's supposed to be the ethos of America too, and that ethos is that still adopts it is the Mountain West states. These states, there's 6 in particular, really 7 if you include Alaska, but they could be a little freaky. I'll leave people with this: North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, and Utah. There you go. Check those. This summer. Don't be a tree. Go on a tour of all of those states or one of those states. I've done all of them. So pound that like button, everybody. Seriously, retweet me on Twitter. I tweet there every day. And thanks for having me on the show. I love talking about this stuff.
I love this too. We'll do this again sometime soon. And maybe I can grab you into one of Puppy Spaces sometime soon as well.
I wish they taped those things.